Hey everyone, welcome back to Ideas That Shape the World. As you know, we've been in our stress relief and strategy series. And so today, I'm super excited about our guest that's on here today. Not only has she taught me yoga practices and ways for me to like do stress relief in my body and my mind and everything like that, but she teaches so many other people and she's making such a difference in the communities. So this is Dawn Rivers, everyone. And Dawn began her yoga journey in 1999 when she bought a Rodney V VHS yoga videotape. She would practice yoga in her basement as a way to bring fitness and stress relief into her life. A couple of years later, she joined a gym and practiced yoga there until she discovered a yoga studio that became her home for almost 10 years. There, she found love, acceptance, and community. In 2013, she became a 200-hour certified yoga teacher through Cleveland Yoga. And in 2019, Dawn completed her 300-hour yoga teacher training with Faith Hunter at Embrace Yoga DC. Her studio, Daybreak Yoga, opened in October 2018. In addition to offering daily classes at Daybreak Yoga, Dawn hosts yoga teacher training, mindfulness, and yoga workshops, collaborative projects, and a mentorship program. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
so
you for
excited
having
to
me.
have you here.
Thanks so much.
So, ever since I've known you now for maybe under a year, but I heard about you before, long before that, because a lot of my friends were connected to you, and they were just like, "You have to meet Dawn. You have to meet Dawn," and you were one of the only women of color that I knew that had a yoga studio and was a yoga teacher here. And so I was excited to meet you. And then when I met you and we connected and I took some classes and then I also went through the yoga teacher training. I saw like how much of a beast you were when it came to yoga. And I'm just like, I was so inspired and motivated by that. And so, with everything going on right now and with this series, I knew that I had to have you on here because there are still techniques that you've taught me that have helped me to breathe my way through the year that has become 2020. And so what have you noticed as far as a shift with this year, and how it's affected you personally with your yoga practices and studio and everything?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be on. I'm
No
honored.
problem.
And yeah, we do know a lot of people in common. So that was great to make the connection between the two of us, to go on this journey together.
Yeah.
And one of my friends posted, I think yesterday, that 2020 has been a heck of a decade.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. So just recently, last week actually, I rented an Airbnb downtown Cleveland near the lake because I was feeling overwhelmed and I needed time away. Because
Mhm.
usually I travel, my daughter lives in DC, my son lives in LA, I have family in Chicago, I do
Yeah.
workshops around the country, and I love to visit. And now with COVID, it's not advisable to travel. So I was
Right.
missing traveling and I was juggling several projects and the training and the teaching and all the stuff. So I took some time away just to be
Mhm.
by myself. I sat by the lake and cried. I
Mm.
cried and cried. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? It just like welled up in me. And this was the time when the hurricane had just kind of like came on land. And I think we had some residual effects way up here in Northeast Ohio because the waves were like high. And I'm watching
Mhm.
them and I'm just crying, watching the sunset. And I just started to kind of heave a little bit. The next day, the water was a little bit calmer. I still cried, but it was better. And then the third day, the water was calm and I just had like tears, no longer like really weeping.
Mm.
And what I realized is that I was grieving. And I think that's what happened, with this year. We're grieving a ton of stuff,
Yeah.
connections with people, the civil unrest that is showing the inequalities and racism and the systematic way of treating people of color that needs to be broken up. We're grieving. We're grieving our lifestyles. We're grieving economic opportunities. We're just grieving, and it was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still grieving, but what I've realized is that it's okay to pause and to grieve. The stages of grief aren't just instant. You don't get through it quickly. So that is my takeaway so far for 2020.
Yes, yes. One of the previous guests on here, Dr. Miriam, or I believe it was her or Denise. I don't remember, but one of them said, like, we're in a collective trauma. It's a collective trauma that we're experiencing as a whole, like the whole world is experiencing the same thing at the same time. And so it has been, we all have had to find ways of processing those feelings and anything that's unresolved, we're having to face those things. And so I know that with a lot of things, like when it comes to meditation or mindfulness and all of that, that tends to be mental and emotional. But what I learned, especially with your training, is that yoga is the way to connect the mind and the emotion to the body with the movements. And so how has those practices, how has that helped you along the way, whether it be for this year and everything going on, or just over the period of time that you've been doing it? How has it helped you get through like different stressful, situations and things that have gone on?
Well, when I started my journey, I was in my late 20s and I was married. And our marriage was up and down, and there were some issues that have never really been resolved, but it affected me emotionally and thus landed in my body. And as I've studied the chakras, I realized that we have these energy centers that get blocked. Mm-hmm. And the space in which trauma tends to lie is in the sacral chakra, and that's where the hips connect. It's on the spine. And when the sacral chakras are blocked, they either are spiraling too quickly or too slowly, and energy doesn't go in and out. Mm-hmm. And because most women of color have experienced sexual trauma and some aspect in your hips, this is where you have your sexuality, your sensuality, your birthing of ideas and babies and all these things. So if you're suppressed there, you're not able to feel safe and you're not able to express yourself in a certain way to regain your power and know who you are. Right. So when I started to do yoga and I would get relief and I would be on the mat, I would cry. And I was like, am I crying? And they just said it was a stress release, but we didn't realize it was a spiritual and energetic release too, because my body was hurting. My hips would hurt, my back would hurt. I had migraines, all these things. So as I moved my body, I was able to move the energy up and out of, out of the body through the breath, through the movements. And I just recently took a class, and this woman said that emotions are or energetic or energy in motion. So when your emotions are kind of like blocked or slowed down, you cannot move the energy. And so yoga bends and folds and different things open up the hips will help release some of that energy that's not in motion, that's, disjointed. So the physical practice of the asanas will help the body release. And then the pranayama, the breath work that you're talking about, that's another way to release, because we're quiet sometimes. We can't say what we need to say because especially as women of color, we might be looked at being aggressive or disagreeable or hard to get along with. and all these things. So you hold your breath because you're not sure how somebody's going to respond to you. So you don't breathe deeply. And so
Right.
the practice of the breathing is mindfulness, because you can only breathe in the present. And when we breathe deeper, we can let it out and let it go. And that helps. So those are the things that have helped, that I continue to do every day.
I love that. I love what you said, that the emotions are energy in motion. And so it's easy to, because when you think about it, sometimes when we feel stuck, or if we feel depressed, or if we feel anything, we like just lay there, or we may just sit there, and then the energy has nowhere to go, and so we feel even worse, because we're not getting the energy moving. And so thank you for sharing that. I know a lot of the breathing techniques in which I've learned from you has significantly helped, because sometimes you literally, for me to, because my mind races so much, sometimes I can be like, okay, what is going on? Or what do I have to do? Or there's so much going on up there that I can be unconscious to the moment that I'm actually in. And so I've learned that the breath helps me to be present in the moment. Like, it brings me back instantly to, okay, I'm in this moment, and then I can consciously, think about things from that aspect. And so I love what you said too about the breathing and the breath work helping. Now, if you bring up the subject of yoga, I know there has been a lot of controversy, a lot of misconceptions about it over the years. I know when I grew up, I would be told like, oh, that's new age, and you can't really do that. And then even as of recently, bringing it up, and someone I was talking to, and they were like, yoga, oh no, like that's evil. And so I find that there are still a lot of misconceptions about yoga and its usefulness, and how much it is helpful to us. And so what are some common misconceptions that you've heard, and how do you speak to those things?
Well, I've heard all of those things. I grew up as a Christian. I still consider myself Christian. Mm-hmm. And the story of Daybreak Yoga comes from when I was a campus minister. Actually, I did a little bit of like that in college, and I was at some kind of event, and this lady, she prophesied over my life and said, you'll be a light on a hill. So mm-hmm. Daybreak, if you look at my logo, is the sun rising between two hills, because I wanted to bring light to people in some kind of way.
Yes.
So for me, I have been personally attacked and said that what I'm doing is demonic. It's not Christian. When you sit in a lotus pose, it's really connecting you to Satan. All these things. And what I see is that, and what I know, yoga is not a religion. It's never been a religion. Yoga is a lifestyle. It's a philosophy. People who are Hindu from India, they practice their religion with yoga. So yoga, and when you look at the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which he could have been one person or it's like a compilation, these sutras are to stitch your life into a way that is ethical and that's practical. Mm-hmm. And one of the main goals is to create a higher elevation to connect you to God. And they never said in the Yoga Sutras who God is. It's your God. So yoga for me connects me to my God of my understanding, my faith, my religion. And so I always said, Jesus gave me yoga, and Jesus and yoga saved my life. The physical aspects of it saved my life. The spiritual aspects, because the yamas and niyamas are only helping you to be a better person in society, to treat people the way you should. I mean, that's biblical right there. It's the golden rule, right?
Right.
Treat others the way you want to be treated. So it's like how to take care of people, how not to steal, how to be, how to surrender. Like that's the last niyama, is surrendering to God, giving it all to God, because we aren't anything without something higher, something bigger. Mm-hmm. That's the way I believe anyway. So The Yoga Sutras, that's what they say. the stories of the Bhagavad Gita and some of the other ones that talk about this quest, and like it's always a story of like good versus evil, or it's always a story of something overcoming something else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, people from the Hindu religion, Hindis, they will focus on their deities, and their deities are representations of God. So they have three main gods, and then those three main gods, they have personalities, and the personalities look different because India is a big country. Right now, there's over 1 billion people that live there, and people, they connect to a deity that looks like them or represents something that they are seeking.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that makes me upset is we have never put down Greek mythology or Roman mythology or even Egyptian mythology. Those are celebrated. We know their stories. We teach it in school.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, Hindu mythology becomes a demonized thing. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Why? I mean, these gods, they have certain, connections, powers, or whatever. You can look at it the same way you do at Greek or Roman or Egyptian mythology, or any of the mythologies that explain how people interact with one another, how the world was created.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. That was a great explanation of that too, because anything that you do has to become personal to you. And so, like you said, you personalized the practices and the philosophies, and you were able to use that as a way of life and a lifestyle. And so I believe that it's important for us to not be so scared off by things that we don't understand, and to seek an understanding of things. And, just like with anything else, you take what's useful to you or resonates with you. And then, with in the things that don't resonate, you just don't use. But I believe that there are so many different useful things and practices that have been done over thousands and thousands of years that help us even to this day. But it definitely requires a level of open-mindedness. And so,
but not just that, we should not demonize things that we don't understand.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's what I feel like certain religions have done. When they don't understand another religion, they demonize it. And I'm not in any way spiritually bypassing Hindu religion. I'm giving them their proper, acknowledgement. There are plenty of Hindus that practice yoga, and there's plenty of Hindus that never have done yoga. I mean, come on. But this practice, it is rooted in the Indian culture for 5,000 years. There's something to say about that it has crossed over the world several times. It's helped people, it's healed people, it's done so much stuff that why would we say that it's wrong? If it was wrong, it would be gone.
Yeah. Right. Yes, definitely. I completely agree with you. People do demonize what they don't understand. And that's why it's just so, and even the scripture says, in all you're getting, get an understanding. You have to get an understanding about all of it. And so, thank you for sharing that. Now, as far as if there is someone that is listening that is like, okay, well, I hear how this could be beneficial to me. I hear, what you're saying, about it being beneficial to me, but where do I start, or where do I begin, or how do I explore that? What would you say to them?
Well, for somebody who is very, very beginner and they're nervous, I would start with something that is easier. Maybe a restorative class, especially because we are on the constant go. My Reiki teacher, she was like, we're not human doings, we're human beings. So we're always doing. So restorative is a practice of rest and using constructive poses to help the body release some of this trauma, anxiety, and depression from our lives. So that one, people don't realize like that's yoga. I mean, I practiced yoga probably, I don't know, it was close to maybe 17 years before I found out restorative was a thing. I was like, wait, this a thing? I would lay down and be gone, because if the teacher creates the atmosphere correctly, you feel secure and safe. And a lot of times right now, we don't feel secure and safe. So the body will start to release. I mean, we talked about like the nervous system and training, and we're in this constant fight or flight. We're always fighting. We're always on the go. We got to like go get, get the bag, grab the bag. Mm-hmm. And so people are like, oh, I need to slow down. So we might do 5 or 6 poses in an hour, and they're going to twist your back, open up your heart and your hips in a way that's not aggressive. So that would be the first way. Yeah. The second way I would say is a slower asana practice. So asana are the poses or the seats, the postures. So an asana practice that will slowly build the body up and then slowly build it down, because it can be aggressive for someone who's never practiced, and then they feel defeated because they didn't do it right or it was hurt. And yoga, some yoga practices, they do hurt until you get stronger. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of one of the things we forget, because we just think it's stretching and touching your toes. It's not. It's a physical practice, just like kickboxing or running or HIIT classes. They don't feel good all the time.
Right.
They don't.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And so those are the ways that, someone could start exploring, the yoga practices, the yoga journeys. And then as far as like breathing techniques, what would you say someone were to start with knowing how to breathe, or just becoming more mindful with their day-to-day when they get overwhelmed, or when they get, frustrated or stressed or feeling stressed out?
Well, there are several pranayama practices, but one would be letting the breath find itself. So I'm in this one training, and they call it like the seed of the breath, because the inhale and the exhale, they both remember each other. And we think of outside, when we plant a seed in the ground, there's the sky and the sun is connected to that soil, and it's going to nurture that seed and grow, and it's going to grow up to the sky. So the inhale will remember the exhale, and the exhale remember the inhale. So if you sit quietly and just breathe as you inhale, let it come naturally. When you exhale, you pause. And then you inhale again, come naturally, and exhale, pause. So that, just sit still, sit up straight and tall, and just breathe like that. Mm-hmm. Or being more specific, we call it a 4-count breath, where you breathe in for 4, you hold it for 4, you breathe out for 4, you hold it for 4. So it's like a square. So you can do that, and you breathe fully. So, and this is another way that they say to help protect the lungs in this coronavirus age, is to breathe deep down into the base of the lungs, because we only use a small capacity. I forget what the percentage is, but it's not the full lung capacity. Right. And you have to train your lungs just like you would any other part of your body.
Yes.
Another way is called a Bhramari breath, which is the sound of like a bee. It's a humming sound. It's and the humming vibrates your jaw, your throat, and your chest. So this whole area starts to settle. And it makes me think of when babies are restless, we go shh. And I just found out recently that the sound internally, when the baby is in the mother's body, the blood passing through and around the placenta sounds like shh. Wow. So that rocking sound is the same thing. You're almost calming yourself down by remembering what you were like internally inside your mother, so that you soothe yourself.
Yeah.
So those are easy, simple things. They don't take a lot of thinking. Like, am I doing it right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Brahmari breath, you can do it while you're lying down. The other two, you can do it while you're sitting up. I would just say the first one, like the seed, just think of the seed. And if you just let the breath find itself, you can do it.
Thank you. Thank you for those tools. I hope you guys are adding these tools into the toolbox that we've been building up. So as things come up, you know exactly what it is to do that you can do. Another great thing that I know that you've taught that has helped it are mantras. So can you share some of your favorite mantras with us that you find to be helpful?
Well, so mantra, it means like mind vehicle. So tra, so almost like in tantra. So there, the tra in Sanskrit is like the vehicle, or it's the thing that takes you from one place to the other. So the idea of a mantra is to take the mind and putting it in a special place where you want it to go. So generally mantras are in Sanskrit. They're in the ancient Indian language that goes with this whole path of yoga. And then people have kind of like made affirmations into mantras.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are what are called sankalpas, which is like almost a life affirmation or a life mantra that you put into place to remove what are called sanskaras. And these, they're like dirt marks on your life. So Om is a mantra. Everybody kind of knows what that is. And Om, I say, is the sound of God. It's the word of God. The idea is it's the sound of the vibration between us and the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of Om, when we hold it, you have this vibration. It's the whole cycle of life. So we start at the back of the mouth. That's the beginning. The middle of the mouth would be like the middle of life. The end is when the lips come together, and then there's a little silence. So that's like the, the void between life being and then the next life. So Om is a good mantra. Again, it's a vibration like the Brahmari breath. And then there's some other mantras that are in Sanskrit. But if we're talking about like mantras, kind of like an affirmation, the one that I'm doing this week is I am enough.
That's a good one.
I am enough.
What does that mean to you?
So one of my coaches, his name is Justin Michael Williams. He has a podcast. He's considered, what does he call himself? Like what is it? A motivational entertainer. I think that's what it is. So he has a song, he's written a book, he has courses, and he wrote a song that goes with this book, and it's I Am Enough, because, and I wrote a post about this today. It's like, what is, like we forget our value. We forget what we're worth. We struggle and we fight to prove what our value is, to make people accept it.
Yeah.
No, you are enough. Who you are, what you want, what you believe, what you can do is enough. And if people can't see that, that's really not your business. It's not your business.
Yeah.
You have to remember who you are. And for me to say that, to remind myself, I'm enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it's so important to know that too, because sometimes it's easy to feel like, especially if you have a lot of responsibilities or a lot of people depend on you, or there may be a lot on your plate. Sometimes you just feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm not meeting the, whatever the standard is that I feel like I should be meeting, or I'm not meeting what they think I should be meeting, or maybe you're looking at someone else's lane, like I'm not there. And so knowing that you are enough and you were born enough and you'll always be enough is just one of the most powerful things that you can know within yourself, because it gives you peace. It gives you peace of mind to know, like, okay, I'm not perfect, but I am enough. And that's enough to know. So thank you for that.
Can I share one more?
Sure.
This has
Yeah, go
a
ahead.
story connected. When I was 42, I was divorcing, and I had this list. I call it 42 things for my 42nd year.
Mm-hmm.
People were like, is that like a bucket list? I was like, no, I just need to feel like better about my life, because I would say over and over, I hate my life. I hate my life. And that was like my mantra.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read this book by Joyce Meyer, who is an evangelist, Christian evangelist, and an author. There's a book called Battlefield of the Mind.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so you have to think about the mind as a space, like you were just saying, sometimes your mind just be like, boom, 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 boom.
Mm-hmm.
But she said that we hear the words that come out of our mouth more, we believe those words more than we believe what anybody else says about our lives. So they might say, oh, Turdon, look at you. You look great. You were like, this old thing. We immediately put it off. You know,
Yeah.
we don't accept the compliment. So I started to say and wrote on Post-its and put it on my window, put it on my bathroom mirror, put it wherever. I love my life. I did not love my life. It took a year. But I remember one day, and it was almost, I think, the beginning of yoga teacher training, 2013. And I was like, oh, I love my life.
Yeah, you felt it.
I felt it. And I was like, it took a year. It took a year for me to actually believe that my life was going to be all right. It was going to be better, and I could love it, and I could be happy and all these things. So
Yeah.
the mantra or your affirmation can go with wherever you need it. So love, that's why I wear my rose quartz. I'm attracted to pink a lot because it goes with the heart chakra. So green to pink. So when it starts green, it glows to pink. That means that you're really exuding this idea of love. And I wasn't loving myself enough. And whenever I feel low, that's where I have to be like, I'm enough. I love my life.
Yeah.
And it goes back to my heart.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's so important. It's so important because that's where it starts. Like there is no way for us to um, effectively do what we need to do in our homes and our communities and our businesses. Nothing until we can effectively do that within ourselves. And so that's so important. Thank you for sharing that. So as we conclude today, can you let people know how they can connect with you, how they can take a class, or if they're interested even in your yoga teacher training, like how can they find all of that?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, my website for Daybreak Yoga is daybreak.yoga. So it's https://daybreak.yoga. And I always say I pay more for the .yoga than the .com, because I was like, wait a minute. Actually, somebody had owned daybreakyoga.com and they wouldn't release it. So I was like, well, whatever. So that's why I got the .yoga. So you can Google, you can search for us on Facebook, and we have classes every day online and in studio. So no matter where you are in the world, we are Zooming online. We have packages just for our Zoomers. We have what's called the Silver Yogi Plus, where you get access to unlimited yoga online every month. And we have a digital library that they have access to get to that too. So there's that. We have workshops. I have a chakra workshop coming up. I call it Mapping the Chakras. We have teacher training. I have 2 spots left for that starting in September. It goes from September through February on Saturdays and Sundays, 12 sessions for that time. And then I do a mentorship program I call The Business of Yoga. And we go deep. So it's not that you have to be a yoga teacher or even want to do anything with wellness. We use the idea of yoga. So from the yoga sutras, the yamas and niyamas, we study those deeply and apply them to our lives. And there's like tons of activities. Even though the people were done, we did 9 weeks. They were like, oh, I'm not finished. I got to go through all these papers. And you own them. So, and then they have connection to me for mentoring for some time.
Yes, and let me tell you, Dawn is thorough. She is going to make sure not only that you understand it, but that you're actually practicing it the right way. I know firsthand. So make sure, even with the classes, the way that she talks you through it, through each class, it's definitely worth it. So find her on, where can they find you online on social
Oh, so
media?
on social media, you can find me on Instagram, Dawn_M_Rivers, or for Daybreak is daybreak.yoga. For Facebook, it's Dawn M. Rivers. For Daybreak, I think it's daybreak.yoga. Pretty sure.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So
Well,
everything is
thank you.
connected.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for sharing so much valuable knowledge and insight and tips and helpful tools for our listeners, our watchers. And yeah, I just want to thank you first for being on here with me today.
Thank you for asking me again. This has been great. Usually, it's not very detailed like this. It might be some other stuff to talk about. So thank you for being specific with the questions.
Oh, no problem. No problem. And thank you for everyone who has tuned in. Thank you for all those who are watching, whether it's via YouTube or if you're listening via Apple or Google or Spotify or any other platforms that we're on. We thank you. Make sure that if you're not subscribed, that you go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you're sharing this with people that you know would find it to be useful. And until next time, everybody. Make sure that you stay creative. Make sure that you stay stress-free during this year. And we'll see you soon.